I will say I forgot to mention that if you took a sign, with turkey meal dinner on it, and that's out, bring it back here to church so we can, reuse it again next year for that. So I forgot in the announcement time to remind us that as well. But this morning, again, uh, we're walking through this series called Grace in Trials. And over the next few weeks, we're going to walk through this. And because we enter in this season of gratitude, we're focusing on one life-changing truth, that God's grace changes everything. See, grace saves us, sustains us, and strengthens us. It's the reason we can live with hope and peace no matter what comes our way. So last week, as we gathered, we talked about All Saints Sunday, and we looked at amazing grace from Ephesians 2, 8, and 9, and we were reminded that grace isn't something we earn. Again, it's not what we earn. It's a gift freely given through Jesus Christ. And because of his grace, we are saved, forgiven, and we are made new. That's something worth celebrating every single day. And then I think we saw a little glimpse of that grace in action last night at our turkey noodle dinner. Like I said, we're nearly 200. In my count, our counts, but we're nearly 200. Meals which were served. I mean, the kitchen was full of laughter. I mean, it was on both sides. The kitchenette and the kitchen both were in laughter. Maybe even in laughter by a few blown fuses. In both spots. But we witnessed the beauty of the community coming together, serving, giving, and connecting what we call people to Jesus. Even when the stove didn't want to cooperate in the back room as the kitchenette either. Grace showed up in the teamwork, patience, and joy. And see, that's really what today's message is about. Grace in trials. Grace in trials. And because grace doesn't only show up when life is easy, it shines brightest when life gets messy. When life is messy, when we face challenges, frustration, or weaknesses, God's grace reminds us, my power works best in weakness. So today, as we reflect on Paul's words in 2 Corinthians, let's remember that the same grace that saves us also sustains us in the kitchen, in our homes, and in the hardest seasons of life. God's grace is enough, always enough. So let us read 2 Corinthians 12, verses 9 and 10. Each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I am glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ can work through me. That's why I take pleasure in my weakness and the insults, hardships, persecution, and troubles that I suffer for Christ. For when I am weak, then I am strong. So God's grace, or the grace I call it, meets us in our weakness. I mean, each time he said, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. And I think about Paul here. Paul pleaded with God to remove what he called his thorn in the flesh. I don't think he knew exactly what it was. But we know it was painful, humbling, and constant. And see, God, in his answer, wasn't what Paul expected. He didn't remove that thorn. He didn't remove it. But he offered, he gave him an offering. He offered him grace instead. And let's be honest, if we are honest with ourselves today, most of us probably do not like that answer. We don't want to hear that answer because we want that thorn gone. We want the fix, not the formation. But grace doesn't always take away the pain. It doesn't always take away the pain. It transforms it. It meets us right in the middle of our weaknesses and says, You don't have to be enough. You don't have to be enough. I am. You don't have to be enough. I am. And then Isaiah 40:29 declares, he gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. So what I'm saying here, church, this morning to you is that means that your weakness isn't a problem to God. Your weakness is not a problem to God. It's the platform for his power. It's a platform for him to use his power. And then the psalmist said in Psalm 73:26, my health may fail and my spirit may grow weak, but God remains. But God remains the strength of my heart. He is mine forever. You see it, I hope. God doesn't want and wait, I should say, for your strength to return before he steps in. He doesn't wait for that strength. He becomes your strength while you are weak. And then Philippians 4:13 reminds us, we all know it. I bet you if I asked, I think I was talking to Deacon the other day, and who we were talking about, he quoted this scripture to me. We were chatting. I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. I don't know. I know I illustrate a lot, and I've connected with people throughout the years. And then as I was in Africa, you hear different stories, and I heard a story once about a missionary couple serving overseas, and who went there on a long season of sickness, exhaustion, and discouragement. But they went. Their plans fell apart, and they began to wonder if they'd made the biggest mistake following God's call. But in that low place that they were, they said something I think that was remarkable that I heard in their story was, we finally stopped trying to prove how strong we were. We tried to stop how strong I was, they were saying, and start to see how strong God is. I mean, they didn't receive instant healing or easy answers, but they discovered something deeper. They discovered something much more deeper, and that if God's grace met them in their weakness and carried them one day at a time. So again, grace doesn't wait until everything is all figured out. Grace doesn't figure it all out. It meets you right where you are. Where are you feeling weak today? Where are you feeling weak today? Instead of asking God to remove the thorn, ask him to reveal his grace in it. Because again, God's grace meets you right where you are, not where you wish you were. So again, if he meets us in our weakness, it doesn't stop there. Once grace finds you, it holds you. It sustains you through the struggles. So again, grace sustains us. So now I'm glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ can work through me. Paul there didn't just accept his weakness. He began to rejoice in it. I don't think that's the denial, that's dependence. It's the realization that when I stop pretending to be strong, that's when I experience the power of Christ resting on me. See, in Isaiah 41:10 speaks strength in this too. Don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and I will help you. That's sustaining grace right there, church. That's the promise that even in the storm, you're not standing alone. You're not alone. And then in Philippians 4:6-7 shows us how grace sustains us. Again, it says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God what you need and thank him for all he has done. Then you will experience God's peace, which exceeds anything we can understand. When you pray instead of panic, grace steps in. When you worship instead of worry, peace guards your heart. So let's be real. Life will, and it does, knock the wind out of you. But grace helps you breathe again. Grace helps you breathe that again. And second, I can never say this, tongues with Thessalonians. I always say it, and I practice all the time, and it always still gets me. 2:16-17, it adds to this. May our Lord Jesus Christ himself comfort and strengthen you in every good thing you do and say. So think back to last night. When we started out, it's busy. We get in and we hook up one of the crock pots or the big warmer, and we get a breaker that blows. We got to pop that breaker. Not only that, again, as we talked about earlier, Teresa and Karen are back in the kitchenette, and before Karen got there, Teresa and I, one burner was on, the electric burner was working. I helped figure out that we had the connections got disconnected somehow for the one burner to warm up. So that happened, and then we ain't getting hot water in back there to do the dishes that they're cleaning up. Steve came in and said Karen broke it, but I think he was trying to be funny there. And then obviously it was a breaker, whatever. Steve, we had Magic Steve fixed it for us. Call it Magic Steve. 2 light bulbs weren't working there. Fixed those. Not only that, then the breaker back broke for the stove or the microwave, and ready to the rescue. I mean, all that it was, right? That not only that, we some of the, I think our to-go containers we thought we had, and some things Copper Kettle came to the rescue. I mean, all that it was, and through all of it, grace sustained the team. I mean, grace looked like people jumping in and helping, staying patient. Some of us probably, we want to lose it, but when I saw it, there was patience. Everybody was patient. I mean, everybody was doing their best, smiling through the sweat, right? And keeping the joy alive. Again, I'm saying nobody in there probably that came in, unless you had a conversation, knew the little mishaps and the quirks that were taking place. See, God doesn't remove the chaos. Guess what? Next year, we're going to still deal with some of those problems. But it carries us through it. So maybe you're in the middle of something that just won't seem to end in yourself. Remember this. Grace may not remove the struggle, but it will renew your strength. See, grace doesn't just get you through. It gives you power to keep standing. So again, grace meets us in our weakness, and grace sustains us through the struggles. But Paul shows us one more thing, and that grace doesn't just strengthen us, it transforms our weakness into witness. Transforms our weakness into witness. For I am weak, then I am strong. See, Paul here, he came to see this weakness, which wasn't a liability, but as an opportunity. See, the world tells us to hide our weakness. Grace says, show it off, because this is exactly where Jesus is going to shine, when you're in your weakness. And we all know Romans 8:28 says, and we know that God causes everything, right? Everything to work together for the good of those who love Him or love God. So that means your pain isn't wasted. It's being woven into something redemptive. And then Paul, he goes on and says in Philippians 1 and verse 12 there, it says, everything that has happened to me here has helped to spread the good news. See, that's when Paul was in prison. But what happened in that prison, it became his pulpit. It became his place to share. So your suffering can become your next, sermon, or your next, opportunity to share your testimony to somebody, with somebody. Because I think of another, artist, songs. We sing songs, but even songs themselves have meaning, we know. And there's a artist named Zach Williams. And he once shared with his people about his song, There Was Jesus. And it came out of a time of his brokenness. He said he felt lost, unworthy, but looking back, when he looked back, he realized something. He realized that Jesus had been there every step of the way. See, that song has touched millions because it came from the weakness turned into witness. Maybe you've seen that too. How someone's quiet faith through pain strengthen your own. That's what grace does. And James 1, 2, and 4 reminds us, when the troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. So joy in trials doesn't mean you love the pain. It means you trust the purpose. When people see God's grace and work in your weakness, they see the gospel in action. Your story of struggle might be the hope someone else needs to keep going. God's grace is enough. God's grace is enough. Whatever you're facing today, whatever your thorn may be, hear God's promise again. His grace is all you need. His power works best in weakness. Put your name there maybe. Corey, grace is all you need. Corey, my power works best in weakness. Grace doesn't always change our situation, church, but it always changes you. It gives you the strength to endure, the faith to trust, and the peace to keep going. So today, just thank God, not just for the grace that saves, but for the grace that sustains in every trial. Because even when life is hard, God's grace is still amazing. I want to leave you with two things. When you've seen God, where have you seen God's grace show up in your weakness this week? And is there a place in your life where God is saying, my grace is enough, and he simply asks you to trust me?